that somebody's exceptionalism on suppression of other cultures and countries. We have to turn over this page. The the destruction of this Western hegemony is irreversible. The world will never be the same, and we're called by this history, by our faith, to fight for historic Russia.
Dang, yeah, they agree with him.
For great historic Russia, for future generations, for our children and grandchildren. We need to protect them from these horrible experiments which are aimed to break their soul and their consciousness. We are fighting for our culture, for our language, so that it's impossible to just cancel it and remove it from history. We have to consolidate the whole society, and the basis for this unification can only lie in integrity, in freedom, and our compassion for people are the basic values that unify us. Ivan Alexandrovich Ilyin is a true patriot. If I believe my motherland to be Russia, that means I I think in Russian, I sing in Russian, and I believe in spiritual power of Russian people. And my spirit and its spirit, my spirit, the the suffering of the people is my suffering, and the development of this people is my development. So these words um, highlight the principle which was followed by many generations of Russians, and it's especially relevant today. The choice was made by people from LPR and DPR in Kherson and Zaporozhye. They made their choice to be with their people, to be with motherland, to to follow its faith path, and to win. And the truth is with us. The Russia is behind us.
Dmitry Medvedev, there he is. All these guys I've been talking about and telling you guys about, it's all in front of your face right now. This is happening right now. This is history. There's about to
The
be a battle of
ceremony
history.
of signing of documents is about to begin.
Up, here we go. Here come the signing of documents, guys. I'm sorry I couldn't put it on the TV. I hope you guys can hear this. Those must be the leaders of the four places. Now,
The President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, head of the Donetsk People's Republic, Denis Vladimirovich Pushilin,
they did this fast. They was
head
ready.
of Lugansk People's Republic, Leonid Ivanovich Pasechny, the head of Zaporozhye Oblast, Evgeny Vitalyevich Waletsky, the head of Kherson Oblast, Vladimir Vasilievich Salda, are signing the agreements between the Russian Federation and Donetsk People's Republic.
Awesome, awesome.
Russian Federation and Lugansk People's Republic. Russian Federation and Zaporozhye region. Russian Federation and Kherson region. Agreements on accepting into the Russian Federation of Donetsk People's Republic, Lugansk People's Republic, Zaporozhye region, and Kherson region. And forming, as part of the Russian Federation, of new subjects.
Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to ask you to put your mobile devices into silent. Dear ladies and gentlemen, we ask you to switch your mobile devices to silent. President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin. Thank you. Dear citizens of Russian Federation, citizens of DPR and LPR, Kherson and Zaporozhye regions, members of the Duma and senators of the Russian Federation. As you know, in Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republic, in Kherson and Zaporozhye region, we had referendums. The results have come through, and the results are known. People have made their choice, and it's a definitive choice. Today, we are signing the decree on accepting LPR, DPR, Zaporozhye, and Kherson region. I'm sure that the Federal Assembly will support the laws of creating four new regions of four new subjects of the Russian Federation, because this is the will of the millions of people. And of course, this is their right, their uh, integral right, which is emphasized in the principles of United Nations. It's the self-determination of people. It's the right that is based on the historical unity, which was defended by generations of our people, people who for generations protected Russia. Rumyantsov, Suvorov, and Ushakov fought in Belarus. Yekaterina II and Potemkin fought, and also our grandfathers and great grandfathers fought in the wars, and people who did not agree with the military coup in 2014, people who um, gave their lives for the right to keep their belief, their language. It's the people of Donbass. These are victims of inhumane terrorist attacks conducted by the Kiev regime. These are peaceful citizens, children, grandmothers, Russians, Ukrainians, people of various ethnic origins. Zakharchenko and Izhoga and Olga Tichura and the other heroes of this, the Murgamedov, who was a military who died heroically. All the heroes of the special military operation, they are heroes. They're heroes of the Great Russia. And we would like to observe a minute of silence in their honor. Thank you. The choice of millions of people of LPR and DPR, Zaporozhye and Kherson regions. Um, what what's behind that is our common history. Despite all the difficulties, they have carried through this love for Russia, and this feeling cannot be exterminated by anyone. And that's why the older generations and the younger people who were born after the tragedy of the destruction of the Soviet Union, they wanted the unity. In 1991, in there was a decision by representatives of the party, of the leading party, to dissolve the USSR, and this has created created destroyed the connections between different parts of our country, and um, the last heads of the Soviet Union went against the will of the people of the Soviet Union and broke that country into smaller countries. They just informed the people about that without asking them. And we accept that they probably did not understand what they were doing, and they did not understand the consequences this would lead to. But this is not important anymore. Soviet Union is no longer there. We cannot return to the past. And for Russia, we don't need this anymore. We're not aiming for that. But there's nothing stronger than the decisive will of millions of people who, according to their culture, to their language, believe to be part of Russia. They, for generations, they lived in a single country, and there's nothing stronger than the will of these people to come back to their historic roots. For many years, the people in Donbass were subjected to genocide and shelling. And in Kherson, they tried to cultivate hatred for Russia. And lately, Kiev regime threatened death and punishment to teachers. And they were threatening repressions to the millions of people who supported Russia. But people from LPR, DPR, and Kherson and Zaporozhye expressed their will. And the real masters of Kiev regime in the West need to remember this. People from Kherson, DPR, LPR, and Zaporozhye become our citizens forever. And we call upon Kiev regime to immediately cease all military actions and the war that they began back in 2014 and come back to the negotiation table. We are open to this, and we stated that many times. But people of Lugansk, Donetsk, and Kherson and Zaporozhye, we will not discuss these areas because they made their choice. And today's Kiev uh, authorities have to respect the expression of the will of these people. And this is the only path to peace. We will protect our land using all our forces, and we will do everything to ensure people's security. And this is the great liberating mission of our people. We will, of course, rebuild all destroyed towns, and we will build hospitals and theaters and schools, and we will continue developing infrastructure and industry. We will ensure healthcare and pension support, and of course, we will increase levels of security. We will do everything for people in these regions to feel the support of all republics and all parts of this large motherland. Dear friends, colleagues, I'd like to address the soldiers and officers who are taking part in special military operation, to warriors of Donbass and Novorossiya, who also joining military after the partial mobilization, those who volunteered to come to the recruitment centers. I would like to address their wives and children. I'd like to say why they're fighting, their who is the enemy that is against us, who is creating new wars and crises to make profit out of them. our compatriots, our brothers and sisters in Ukraine, part of our uh, people saw with their own eyes what the leading circles in the West are preparing for the people in the world, and they have expressed their true nature in there, and and we will not. Uh, Back in 1991, the West believed that USSR will not come back, or Russia will not come back from that blow. And we had this awful 1990s. And however, Russia withstood that and became more powerful and took its deserved place. And but the West is looking for new opportunities to hit us, and they always dreamt about breaking our state into smaller states who will be fighting against each other. They are not they cannot be happy with this idea that there's this large country with all the riches, natural riches, and people who will never uh, live under foreign oppression, and they are prepared to do everything using this neo-colonial system to rob all other countries in the world, and the whole humanity has to pay them some dues to this hegemon, and they've got this cruel motivation, and that's why they are very aggressive towards independent states. They're aggressive towards traditional values and cultures. They are trying to undermine international and integrational processes and new centers of technological development. It is critically important to them so that all countries surrender their sovereignty to the United States voluntarily. Some countries voluntarily agree to do this, and they voluntarily agree to become vassals of these states. Others are being destroyed and bullied. And after there are millions of broken lives and um, areas of social disturbance and so on. The only thing they want to have is their profit out of this, their greed, their desire to to keep their unrestricted power. This is the reason of this hybrid war that the West is conducting against Russia. They want to see us a colony. They do not want to have uh, cooperation on the basis of equality. They want to rob us. Um, they, to them, our philosophy is a direct threat, and that's why they attempt to kill our philosophers. And our development and our um, livelihood is a threat to them. They do not need Russia. We need Russia. I'd like to remind you that the ambition for world domination has been broken by Russian resistance many times in the past. And today we are defending our values and our traditions. They believe that they will not be punished for their actions. And the agreements in the area of strategic cooperation are being cancelled. Agreements on the state level announced to be null and void. And the agreements that were there in the past are being completely cancelled. And the agreements on the non-proliferation of weapons are unilaterally cancelled. Who what are these rules that they're acting based on? Who saw those rules? Who agreed upon those rules? And we see that there are double standards, triple standards. They are just taking us for fools. Russia is a great country and it's a great civilization, and it's not going to continue to live under this false rules. It, it's the West that broke that principle um, of um, of the borders, and they are now unilaterally deciding who has the right to self-determination and who doesn't. Why are they making that decision? Who gave them the right to decide that? That's why they're very angry at the choice of people in Crimea, Donetsk, Kherson, and Zaporozhye. That's why they believe that people do not have the right to have to self-determination. Their hegemony has got a character of totalitarian nature and militarism, and they they believe that all these countries have to be joined to the list of barbarians who need to be fought against and oppressed. There's nothing new in this. The Western elites have always been like this. They have been colonizers and they remain colonizers. They discriminate and they distinguish between the first class nations and second class nations. We never believed that. And that's why there is this Russophobia that is being spread all over these countries. The Western countries believe that their civilization and their neoliberal culture is the golden standard to everyone else. This sounds quite strange. Even the the Western elites even believe that their own sins have to be accepted by everyone else. We need to remind the West that neo-colonial uh, politics began in the Middle Ages, and then they robbed India, Africa, and there were wars against China where they had to surrender their ports for opium trade. What they did um, subjected the whole nations to drug abuse and to um, other things, and they were effectively hunting people. And we are proud of the fact that in the 20th century, it was our country which was the head of the anti-colonial movement and allowed these nations independent development and conquer um, diseases and hunger. And one of the reasons for Russophobia and this anger from the Western elites is to do with the fact that we did not allow them to rob these formerly colonial countries further. And this was achieved by the fact that we were able to create a strong independent state, which continued to strengthen on the basis of strong values of Christianity, Islam, and other religions. It's known that there were plans of intervention in Russia and at the beginning of 17th century, mm, and these plans failed, and all of this was achieved in at the end of 20th century when the state collapsed, and they pumped out trillions of dollars from this country using various schemes. We did not forget anything. In these days, in Donetsk and Lugansk, in Kherson and Zaporozhye, people spoke about their desire to restore our historic unity. Thank you. Western countries for centuries have been talking about um, their uh, their desire to bring democracy to other countries, and this is completely opposite. It's pressure and oppression and slavery and violence, and this world world order is undemocratic and is void of liberty. U.S. is a country that used nuclear weapons twice. Um, Nagasaki and Hiroshima were the towns that were attacked by, um, and they ruined all these cities in Hamburg and Cologne in Germany without any military need, just to demonstrate without any military need necessity. They carpet bombed these cities in order to threaten the whole world and our country. And they bombed Vietnam and used chemical weapons. And up to this day, they are occupying Korea, Japan, and Germany, in fact. And they are talking about them um, as their partners, as their allies. And we can see that the first people, the first leaders of these countries are being listened to. They bug their mm, offices and also their homes, and and we can see that these countries just accept that, and they are they're developing chemical weapons and experiment on people, and they believe this to be noble causes, and they provoked today's large movement, immigration movement, uh, through their actions. Now they're transporting uh, wheat out of Ukraine. Where is it going? Under the pretext of ensuring food security for the poorest countries. Where is it actually going? It's going to Europe. Maybe 5%, less than 5% goes to the poorest countries. Again, this is just fooling and deceit. American elites, in essence, are using the tragedy of these people in order to weaken their competitors, in order to conquer the national states. And this goes for other countries, France, Spain, Italy, and so on. And Washington is asking for more and more sanctions, and majority of European leaders simply agree to this. They understand that America is pushing for complete cut-off of Russian energy to EU in order to capture the European market themselves. The European elites understand all of that themselves, but they prefer to just submit to these demands. And this is just a betrayal of their people, of their own people. But Anglo-Saxons are not happy with the sanctions. They moved to terrorist attacks, having arranged the explosions on the pipelines, gas pipelines in the sea, and they are destroying the European infrastructure. It's all clear who benefits from this. The diktat of the United States is based on sheer power, but it's wrapped into this pretense of international law and principles. And that's why there are hundreds and hundreds of military bases and attempts to further expand NATO and create new military alliances. And they're actively working on in strengthening the connection between Washington and Tokyo, and they and anyone who is daring to challenge the hegemon is automatically declared a pariah. In the new colonial plans presented by the West uh, in the form of, um, of trying to contain other countries. But what that actually means is undermining any sovereign centers. We talked about containment. We know about containment of Iran, China, and other countries. Uh, we we know that the current partners and current allies of the U.S. We know that whenever the U.S. doesn't like something, they introduce sanctions against their allies or partners. This is what's happening in practice, and this will continue. In the crosshairs, they've got everyone, including our closest neighbors, CIS countries. They they started the sanction blitzkrieg against Russia, and they thought that they would order the whole world around using that. However, not everyone is excited about that. We see that political masochists and other uh, people who like these non-traditional political relations, they refuse to cooperate with Russia, and we see that uh, the the West has the habit of brute force and trying to capture everything, but then they are frozen in the past, and this creates this concept of exceptionalism, but it also creates the culture of information starvation in the West. They have drowned the truth using very aggressive propaganda, like Hebels. They say that the larger the deceit, the more people will believe it. Um, they are printing money, but you can't feed anyone with this money. You cannot warm your homes with this money. What's very important is what we just said. You cannot feed people with this printed money. You need to have food, and this inflated capitalizations will not be able to feed anyone either. You need to have actual food. So politicians in Western Europe have to persuade their citizens to shower less, to eat less, and put on warm clothes. And those who disagree with this are announced as radicals, and they always point to Russia, saying this is the source of your troubles. And I would like to emphasize that there is the basis to believe that Western elites are not going to look for any ways out of current financial and food crisis, which happened due to their own fault. Their fault that they conducted the actions that they have been conducting over the last few years. And they're not going to resolve problems of uh, injustice, and they are going to steer towards their usual recipes. We see that the crisis of the beginning of the 20th century was resolved through the First World War, and we see that the US, uh, after going into recession, was able to impose the dollar on the rest of the world. And we see that the crisis become more acute in the 70s or 80s of the last century. And we see that they have used and abused the resources of the disintegrated Soviet Union. And now they have their goal to break Russia at any cost. And they want to rob people of their riches to plug their own holes. And they will, if they succeed, they will try to lead the whole system into complete collapse, and they will try to write it off with a war. Russia understands its responsibility to international community, and it's obvious that today's neo-colonial model is doomed. But I would like to emphasize that the real masters will continue to fight to the end. They've got nothing else to offer apart from keeping that racketeering and robbing model that they've stuck to. And today they are moving to radical um, radical attack on basic values of family and so on. I would like to address all citizens of the country, not just those who are in this audience. I'd like to address everyone in Russia. Do we want here in Russia, in this country, do we want father and mother to be replaced by parent number one, parent number two? Are they crazy? Do we want in our schools right from the early age, so the children are being advertised all these sexual deviations and so on, and where they're offered to change their gender and so on? Do we want any of that for our country? None of that is acceptable to us. We have our own future. The dictature of Western elites is aimed at subjugation of people of their own countries too. Everyone, complete um, denial of people's rights, and they are moving towards the open Satanism. Uh, And Jesus said that you will see people, you'll see the people by their actions. And we see that new centers of development are being formed now, and they represent the majority of humanity. And they are prepared not just to present an alternative, but also to defend their own sovereignty and gain true liberty and historic perspective, the right to their own development and to their own harmonious life. We've got a lot of people who support us, including in the US, and we feel their support in various societies and countries. We have the movement that is being developed now, that is developing anti-colonial freedom movement. And this is the power that will determine the future political reality. Dear friends, today we are fighting for just and freedom path for ourselves, for Russia, uh, for dictature and imposing of the will is left in the past. Um, that um, nothing should be based on somebody's exceptionalism, on suppression of other cultures and countries. We have to turn over this page. The the destruction of this Western hegemony is irreversible. The world will never be the same, and we are called by this history by our faith, to fight for historic Russia, for great historic Russia, for future generations, for our children and grandchildren. We need to protect them from these horrible experiments which are aimed to break their soul and their consciousness. We are fighting for our culture, for our language, so that it's impossible to just cancel it and remove it from history. We have to consolidate the whole society, and the basis for this unification can only lie in integrity, in freedom, and our compassion for people are the basic values that unify us. Ivan Alexandrovich Ilyin is a true patriot. If I believe my motherland to be Russia, that means I I think in Russian, I sing in Russian, and I believe in spiritual power of Russian people. And my spirit and its spirit, my spirit, the the suffering of the people is my suffering, and the development of these people is my development. So these words um, highlight the principle which was followed by many generations of Russians, and it's especially relevant today. The choice was made by people from LPR and DPR in Kherson and Zaporozhye. They made their choice to be with their people, to be with motherland, to to follow its faith path, and to win. And the truth is with us. The Russia is behind us. This ceremony of signing of documents is about to begin. The president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, head of the Donetsk People's Republic, Denis Vladimirovich Pushilin, head of Lugansk People's Republic, Leonid Ivanovich Pasechnik, the head of Zaporozhye Oblast, Evgeny Vitalyevich Valetsky, the head of Kherson Oblast, Vladimir Vasilievich Salda, are signing the agreements between the Russian Federation and Donetsk People's Republic. Russian Federation and Lugansk People's Republic. Russian Federation and Zaporozhye region. Russian Federation and Kherson region. Agreements on accepting into the Russian Federation of Donetsk People's Republic, Lugansk People's Republic, Zaporozhye region, and Kherson region. And forming, as part of the Russian Federation, of new subjects. National anthem of the Russian Federation is being played.